No role plays, just real. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader.
We've never really, as a workforce, spent a lot of time on making sure we're developing good leaders.
We'll be able to share stories, experience, mistakes, failures, successes.
This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, on this episode, we're going to be talking about the 5th pattern in the 7 dysfunctional patterns in workplaces, as chronicled by Siobhan McHale in her book, The Insider's Guide to Culture Change. But before we go into this, I want to talk about some changes that we're making to our podcast platform, as you and I both know already. We've noticed an uptick in a lot of the number of listens that our podcasts have been getting since the beginning of this quarantine and pandemic era. And I know that a lot of people out there are kind of struggling to keep up. And so what we've decided to do for the summer, at least, is dial back on the output that we're putting out there to allow our listeners a chance to catch up. We want to be respectful of your time. And I know that we put a lot of content out. So what we're going to do for the next foreseeable future is we're going to keep our Monday episodes just like they've always been since the beginning. We know we get a lot of great feedback out of those episodes. We're still going to do our Thoughtful Thursdays back and forth, where Lorenzo and I take turns in doing it. And we're still going to have a great number of guest series and guest interview episodes on Wednesdays throughout the time. What we're going to do is dial back our Talent Tuesday and Pay It Forward Fridays back to about once a month to allow listeners time to keep up. What do you think about that?
I think it's a great idea, and I've really appreciated a lot of the questions that we've got, the emails that we've got, and to your point, we've seen a lot of people and a lot of episodes right now that people are listening to. So I think it's a good for for the summertime to kind of ease back a little bit, let people catch up, and continue to focus on the content that we want to go, going into the fall and going back into a holiday towards the end of the year.
Yeah. I know that the best podcasts that I listen to are ones where I feel like I can keep up with all of the content, where I don't have to, pick and choose. And I know that when we first started the show, we know that's why we designed our episodes around the kind of the 20-minute mark, because that was the average commuter's time to work. It would allow them to listen to the podcast without having to give up something else in their life. What we've realized in this new era where a lot of people are working from home is that a number of people listen to podcasts while they're sitting in their cubicles at work, and they can get some work done while listening. And I know that has kind of changed for a lot of people. So I think this is going to fit in nicely.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you are joining us for the first time since we started this series, we're talking about the 7 dysfunctional patterns in workplaces. The first pattern we talked about was the blame pattern. Then we discussed the order taker pattern. Then we went to the rule breaking pattern. Last Monday, we talked about the reactive pattern. And then for the 5th of 7, we're talking about the siloed pattern. And I think this one is going to be an interesting one, because I think that silos play an interesting part of work culture, and they bring with them some inherent benefits, but also a lot of danger and also a lot of negatives. So first of all, Lorenzo, have you ever been in an environment where you felt like you were siloed and that hurt you, or did it help you? I mean, how do you think about this?
You know what? It's both. I think my initial reaction when I heard the term silo is we have to break the silos. We have to bring people together and collaborate. And that's just naturally innate in what I want to do is talk to people and have an element of collaboration and teamwork and whatnot. But I've also thought, and looking back of in different parts of my career, where there's been a lot of value in a silo. I've had the opportunity of leading retail stores that are further away from the rest of the market, and they're kind of like the outlier stores and things like that, where there's a lot of benefit that you get in having your own space, in being able to get very specific and focused and tactical on what you're looking to build from a culture or result standpoint. There's a lot less distractions of other things that are going on. So there can be a lot of times where you can lean into the silo element and really utilize it to your benefit for a lot of different things. And then there's times when I think it's when I've been forced to be in that silo is when I really don't like it. If we're being honest here, right? I'm like, no, I don't want to be in a silo. I want to know what's going on. I want to be able to work with other people and see what, it's more about me and me wanting to have a better sense of what everybody else is doing. But in fact, sometimes it's good for me to just continue to stay, and work on the things that only I can work on.
Yeah, I think you made a lot of great points there. And I love that you put it in the context of almost like transparency, meaning there's an inherent negativity associated with a feeling that your organization is keeping you in the dark. No one wants to feel that way. And so from a siloed standpoint, if you feel like you're being kept in a silo because of some ulterior motive, because the company's they don't trust you enough to know this information or to be able to weigh in on this information, that's when it becomes an issue. When silos are good, or when you're talking about just division of labor. You have a job to do, and we all know the saying, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. Yeah, that's a bad thing when the left hand doesn't know what the right is doing. It's also a bad thing when the left and the right hand are both doing the same thing. Sometimes the left hand has a job and the right hand has a job. They need to know what each other are doing, but they also shouldn't be stepping on each other's toes. And so that's, I think, where there's that division comes in, where you have to figure out as a leader, at what point do you say, you know what, transparency is good here. I don't want you to feel like you're being kept in the dark or that we don't trust you, but you also have a job to do, and these people have a job to do too, and you need to make sure that you're focused on your job more so than their job.
Yeah, I think when you consider this like like a dysfunctional pattern, and from the chart it says we operate independently and we don't share. And I think that, right, again, that can happen, I think, in a lot of organizations and companies where you have this hierarchy of leadership where you've got somebody who is, like, I'm only responsible for kind of accounting and
Sure.
this type of thing. And then I'm only responsible for like research and development. And then I'm only responsible for marketing. And I'm only responsible for sales. And you have these silos where that's you're only thinking about what's best for you and your team and what output is that you're trying to put out, versus thinking about everybody and not just operating independently, but actually sharing some of that. So like there will be times in organizations where, yeah, like a lot of the things is kind of like on a need to know basis. And it doesn't really, I don't need to know if I am leading a retail store on how we negotiate the widgets that we sell. We negotiate the cost, we do all that type of, right? I don't need to know necessarily from a marketing standpoint on what pictures that we choose to use and how we put them out there, the whole type of deal. However, it would be good for me to know and understand, like, what are the new things that we may have, that are a service or a product or something like that I would be able to kind of have an idea on, because then as I think about leading my team or leading my responsibility, I can start to maybe hedge my bets a little bit in regards to like training and development and getting people prepared. So like it can, that's where I think when it comes to like the silo piece is like that idea of like, well, if I had known before, I could have been more prepared now. And sometimes that's good and it can work. And sometimes it absolutely cannot work for a lot of different types of reasons. So I think that that's just something, when I think of the dysfunction itself, is I believe that when you build an organization or a team or a system where you're only having people that lead that part, being responsible for and maybe being bonused on or paid on just their thing, it creates that environment where like, I don't care what anybody else does. I'm trying to get my thing done, be successful at it, and get paid on it.
Yeah, this is one of those dysfunctional patterns where it can be hard to know that it's happening without looking at the results of it. Meaning you can't really diagnose it. All you can do is look at the symptoms and then assume this is what's going on. So I'll give you a great example, because this happened to me actually yesterday. I bought something from an online retailer, and then this morning when I woke up, I had an email in my inbox from them after I'd made the purchase that said, get 10% off your first purchase. And I'm thinking, okay, so what happened is a cookie or something was taken from me when I went to the site initially. That went to a marketing team who then got my email address and then said, let's try to get this person to buy something. They assume that the majority of the people who went to the site aren't going to buy something the first time they go. Well, I wasn't that person. I did buy something. And so clearly they don't have the ability to discern between current customers and potential customers. And what that means is that the marketing team is siloed away from the e-commerce team. They're not the same thing. They don't talk to each other and they don't know. And that creates a terrible customer experience. It's broken. And so as for me, what that says is, how do they not even know that I just bought something from them? And that makes me less likely to want to buy something from them in the future. And so when you have these siloed teams, this is what can happen. And people judge you harshly for these.
No, so the next question then. So then did you buy it again, get the 10% off, and then return the first one?
No, I got the 10% off anyway, because when you go to their site, it says get 10% off your first order when it pops up on the screen. And so I put my email in to get the code for the 10% off. And so that's why I know it was frustrating, because I got the 10% off code because I entered my email. And that's what led to me getting the next email the next day saying, get 10% off your first order. So it just means that they had no idea that I actually bought something. And there needs to be some way of, in real time, matching the email address. Oh, this person already bought. Stop this email from going out, because it creates a bad experience.
You know, it's funny. You kind of triggered me a little bit, because I've had a similar, somewhat experience with a small business and a creator that I was looking to support, where I purchased something. It's been about 5 weeks now. Okay.
Yeah.
And I bought it. And I was like, this is awesome. I bought it for my wife so that she could have something to do, since we know we're going to be around the house and kind of quarantine and all that type of stuff. And immediately I got an email, thank you for your purchase, so excited. You know, by the way, we have this other thing that you didn't buy that you can get it as a discount now. And then like the next day I got another email. It was like, welcome to the family. Here's a little bit about us and what we do in our small business. And then the third day I got another email that was like, you have a 5-day, 20% off thing. And I was like, okay. So then after the 5th day of getting a daily email about promotion, I still hadn't had my product yet, right?
Yeah.
So I responded to the company in the email and I said, hey, thank you for the emails, right? I'm very familiar with things like marketing and SEO and this type of thing. And I appreciate that you've got a system built where you're enticing people to buy. And I'm like, but I haven't even gotten the product that I bought yet. So it's hard for me to make a decision on what else I need or would want to purchase as a result, because I don't have it yet. You know, they said, thank you so much for the feedback. You know, we're sorry about that. You know, looking forward for you to get your product. Okay. And then I got another email the next day, then another email the next day, and then another email the next day. So now I'm just intrigued. So now after about 2.5 weeks, I then respond to my initial order and said, hey, I still haven't received my product yet.
After 2 weeks?
After 2 weeks. Can I get an update? Right?
Yeah.
And then at that point, I got the response, we're really sorry. As a result of the pandemic, shipping has been delayed. We know that there's a delay. Many customers are feeling at it. We're so sorry. Here's an update on where it's at. We'll stay in touch with you. And I said, okay, I get it. You know what? Like, I understand. It's wild for everybody. Not a big deal. I'll wait. And then you know what happened the next day?
You got another email.
I got another email.
Yeah.
Right. For another 20% off. Right. So literally, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Right.
Well, it's been almost 6 weeks at this point. I still don't have the product. I had to unsubscribe from their email list because it was every day I was getting an email. And so to your point, even in a small business between two people, a husband and wife team who run this business, to say, well, we know that all of our customers right now, I have to imagine it's not just me, all of our customers right now are in a major delay. Why don't we just click off the auto email responder and maybe send out an email that says, we're so sorry about the delay. We are a small business. We are looking to get this taken care of, right? We appreciate your business. We'll keep you updated. Like that is, though, a dysfunctional pattern within even a small business of two people of not realizing that, like, they're independent, like they're not operating with their customers.
Right.
They're only operating with the system that they have, because I'm sure I'm not the only one. And I felt so bad. I was like, I don't even want to go to, like, you know, I'm sure I haven't seen their ad in a long time on social media, right? So like, I'm feeling like maybe somebody's like, let's take this down, because they're getting blown up in the threads of all the people that are like, don't buy this, we don't have it yet. But I'm just like, but that's something where if you were thinking of not being in your silo of just doing what you normally do and listening to your consumers and realizing there's a delay and making an adjustment, then you no longer would have that dysfunction from a work standpoint.
Right. And I think the larger a company is, the slower things turn, but the more resources you have. And so I have a hard time having sympathy for when this happens, whether it's a tiny 2-person business or a Fortune 500 company, because the tiny 2-person business arguably doesn't have the resources, but that means the communication's got to be tight because there's only 2 people. And then in a large organization, maybe it takes a long time to steer the boat, but with all the resources you have, how many times does it take for this person to get an email and say, you know what? I get where this is coming from. I might not be the only one who's receiving emails like this. Let me get it to the right person. And then hopefully there's an aggregate. It might take a couple weeks to have happen, but it should still happen. And so, I have a hard time with this one. I also think where this can be an issue too, is like if you look at, and we see examples of this in law enforcement. In law enforcement, you have like, we know the cliche, the movie or TV cliche where it's like, the FBI comes in and it's like, we're in charge now, and like the local police officer's like, wait a minute, you can't do that, and you have all these like, it's these measuring contests, so to speak, about power and who gets to be in control and who gets to be in charge. And all that ends up happening in any of those situations is people end up with egg on their face because no one talked to each other, because they all wanted to kind of crack the case on their own and not have to share the credit. And that's what it comes down to, is who gets the credit. One of my favorite quotes of all time is from former President Harry Truman, and it says, "It's amazing what we can accomplish when we don't care who gets the credit." I think when we talk about in the context of how Siobhan McHale details these on how people benefit from these patterns, this is where they see the benefit, is what kind of credit can I get by being able to be the one who does this without having to share that credit with somebody else. And when you break down silos, what happens inevitably is you have to share credit. And some people do not want to do that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. And I think that that's in environments where you're, thinking of siloing being a dysfunction, I think not even just kind of the shared credit, but as I was mentioning earlier, like the shared opportunities in regards to recognition or performance-based, monetary funds or things like that. Like, I think that that's where a lot of it becomes a major issue. And well, a lot of it's not that it becomes a major issue, it's that it maintains the normalcy of having the silos because nobody's willing to break out of it.
And if everybody's benefiting from it, or they look at there's no tangible detraction from your quality of life or your business outcome, your performance by being in that silo, meaning you're never sanctioned or punished, or your boss never comes to you and says, "I know you brought this result and I like it, but do you know how much better you could have done if you'd brought this team and this team and this team in too? Why didn't you do that?" And because leaders don't get involved typically in that front and kind of make that happen, all these people see is the accolades they get when they do crack the case, or they do solve a problem, or they do accomplish something, and they don't get any punishment for not collaborating. That can maintain that silo dysfunction.
Absolutely. And with that brings us to this episode's 1 minute hack.
The 1 minute hack.
All right, for this episode's 1 minute hack, here's what I want you to do. Get out your pen and paper again, and I want you to write down a list of all the things you're responsible for in terms of your job expectations, performance metrics, the expectations of what you're expected to deliver on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis. Every single thing that goes as a part of your performance review, all the expectations of your job. Write them all down, no matter how big or how small. And then next to each one, I want you to write down a checkbox next to each of them where other people are also responsible for this, and you don't interact with those people on a regular basis. Meaning if you do interact with them on a regular basis, they're just part of your team. They might be in the silo with you. But how many of those things do other people have a responsibility for, other than you, where you don't have a general working relationship with them? If you can name a lot of them where that is the case, you're probably not in a siloed pattern like this because you have shared responsibilities, shared credit, and shared outcomes. If you can't name very many of the expectations you have where other people have the same expectations too, then you're likely in one of these siloed patterns.
Yeah, I think it's a great 1 minute hack, and it's a reminder that shared responsibility and shared credit is the thing that will best help to get out of this dysfunction. But also, you should consider the fact that as a leader, you can also get your team to work in a silo in an environment that is not within a silo. So you have to be very conscious of the people that you lead. Do they also have access to other people? Are they also working with others? And are you building an environment where they have the capability to work with other people that are responsible for similar types of things or working on similar projects? So it's not that every company is either silo top down, but it can also become something that happens as a dysfunction within a smaller team if the leader does not allow them to measure themselves and work with other people to get results.
Absolutely. I think one of the core hallmarks of silos is a disconnect. So that's the whole point of it. You're disconnecting teams from each other. And if we talk about what employees look for to get a feeling of engagement and productivity and happiness with their organization, it's feeling connected to the organization and the mission of the organization as a whole. There is no quicker way to disconnect employees and therefore disengage employees than to disconnect them from the mission of the organization. And if you have silos in your organization, those silos don't feel connected to the broader mission. They only feel connected to the mission of their silo. So by removing these silos and making sure that people feel like they're connected to something bigger than themselves, you will have more engagement in your employees.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.